How's it going, guys? ThezRhino here, and wanted to make a quick video talking about why I think affirmative action is bad. Now, with most videos of this sort, I typically describe how this came to my mind. Like, why am I even thinking about affirmative action? It doesn't even affect me. Why should I be talking about this? Well, number one, I like to have opinions on things that don't affect me. For example, gay marriage. I'm incredibly for gay marriage. I was so happy with the ruling that gay marriage legalized across the whole 50 states, and that doesn't affect me at all. I am a straight white male, who that doesn't affect one bit, but I have an opinion about that. Well, how this came up was I was actually at dinner with my parents, and we were talking about, feminism. We were talking a little bit about feminism, because not that my parents are anti-feminist, but they disagree with a lot of the things that feminists try to do. Like, for example, my dad works in a really big office for a pretty damn big company, and he thinks that it's, you know, all this stuff about it's bullshit how women are supposedly oppressed, even though he has a lot of superiors who are women who have incredible position. He sees a lot of women in the workplace making a ton of money, and they weren't discriminated against at all, as well as the whole 77 cents for every dollar a man makes. He thinks is absurd based on so many factors. I even showed him some of the stuff about how, you know, that wage gap is the difference between men's and women's average salaries in the workforce. It's not an accurate representation because it doesn't factor in any variables that are necessary. You need to examine the individual. An individual who goes into the workplace, regardless of their gender, well, not even the workplace, go into college, have equal opportunity for the same degrees that are in the same amount as men. And so an individual going into college, they can, whatever their gender, they can go into business, and if they are successful in their classes, then they can get a really good job in business and then make a lot of money. So it's based, you have to look at the individual. You can't look at the two genders unless you're looking at specific positions as well as the other variables involved, which there's no wage gap once you do that. We were talking about that, sorry about that little tangent there, but we were talking about that, and my dad mentioned something about some Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action. He didn't really say much about it because my mom asked, what is affirmative action? My dad basically summed it up like this. Well, kind of. And so this is a definition for anyone of you guys who doesn't know what affirmative action is. Basically, affirmative action is whenever there is a supposed underprivileged group setting a quota so that underprivileged group has to be a certain amount of a larger group. That sounds kind of weird, but I'll explain it using something that is partially true and partially not true, but it will definitely define what affirmative action is. So basically, the part that's true is recently there was a ruling that, well, a change in the rules so that now women can hold combat roles in the army, which of course is great. That's progression. Women are now equal to men in the army. But so before that, women could not hold that position. So supposedly they're underprivileged in that sense. They could not hold a combat role, and then the ruling changed it so that they could. So 100% of combat roles were filled by men. Now women are able to hold those roles. So affirmative action would be saying, okay, let's say there are 1 million combat roles, which is way off. I'm making up the numbers, but there's 1 million combat roles. So because of the new ruling, 25% of those roles have to be filled by women. So 250,000 combat roles have to be women. That is basically what affirmative action is, placing a quota or requirement of admittance or inclusion in order to make things supposedly more even. So here's the problem with affirmative action. Let's take that example that I just gave you about combat roles, which is not true. They don't have a quota right now for combat roles. I don't know if they will or not in the future. As of the point of making this video, they don't. But let's just say they do. Here's the problem with affirmative action, and this applies across the board. Let's say, for example, I don't know anything about the army, so what I'm about to say is all hypothetical, but it very much applies. Let's say that there was a requirement of you have to run a mile in under 7 minutes. You have to run a certain obstacle course in less than 10 minutes that, like, you know, the average time is like 12 minutes. You have to be able to bench press this certain amount, and then you have to go through these certain training exercises that simulate combat, and you have to pass those exercises, this training simulation. Let's say those requirements were put into place for the combat role. You have to meet those requirements, and let's say those requirements have always been the case too. If affirmative action took place, then it is highly likely, very likely, that a lot of people in the supposedly underprivileged group, women in this case, who did not meet the requirements would get combat roles, and men who did meet the requirements would not get combat roles. This is harmful because we need qualified people in that position. So of course this would be bad. It's better to have the million combat roles or whatever. By the way, I'm not pro or anti-war. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just saying for this example. You have a million combat roles. Those roles should be filled by people who meet the requirements regardless of their gender. So basically, when you're applying for it and testing for it, you shouldn't ever have to check a box saying what gender you are. The same thing goes for something like colleges. Affirmative action, I believe there has been affirmative action in some colleges saying that, you know, a certain amount of people have to be of a certain color or different color or underprivileged group. I haven't done any research on this and I apologize for that, but I have seen some videos talking about it. So the same thing goes for these colleges. Some people who aren't necessarily qualified, not because of their race or gender, but because of their actual intelligence, might get accepted into a college that someone who does meet the requirements and who is of the intelligence required might get denied, simply because they require a certain amount of the underprivileged group, especially so if it's a percentage. If you say that 10% of 10% of current enrolled full-time students have to be black, for example, then that would cut out people who are white. No matter how many people you allow in, you would have to cut some people out because there would be people who are qualified for it, whether they're white, Asian, or whatever race, and people who are not qualified for it, of the supposedly underprivileged group, getting in. This is harmful, and this is something that should not be happening. And this is universal. This is something that can be applied to almost any scenario. I mean, I haven't seen any, but there may be a few occasions where affirmative action might be helpful. I don't know, I have not, like I said, I've not seen any, but in terms of these very important things like college, like combat roles, like jobs, there should be no affirmative action. It should be you hire or you allow on or you include people who are qualified, regardless of their race or gender. This has been kind of a random video. I am on break right now. I only have my camera, I don't have my microphone, so I apologize for the crappy mic quality. Although in here, I'm not hearing any background noise, so there shouldn't be any crappy noises coming in from the side like there was in my first video with this camera. Well, my first video in the most recent succession. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this topic, because it's definitely a controversial one. There are people who are very for affirmative action, and I don't think they're stupid. I don't think anything badly of them. I just disagree with them. Just like with all the other topics that I hold, there are people that I just disagree with. And if you want to post a dissenting opinion in the comments, go ahead. Just make sure you keep it non-ad hominem, I guess. If you keep it relevant, my friend won't ban or kick you or ban or remove the comment, and he might even respond. I actually don't know what my friend's stance is on this situation. We'll find out in the comments. But yeah, let me know what you think of the topic. Let me know what you think of the quality of the video, because I'm in basically my bonus room, I guess you'd call it. It's like 2 a.m. right now. My parents are asleep, and I just want to make a video. I don't know how many I'm going to be able to make over break. Hopefully a lot. I want to try to get a lot of videos out. There are a lot of topics that I'm wanting to write about or wanting to talk about. I just haven't really had time, and I haven't really been able to put it into words. One video that I'm thinking of doing, and you can let me know if you want to see this video or not, is actually I wanted to do a video on rape. Sort of taking a look at the definition of rape, because there's rape as we kind of think of it, and then there is rape as some groups, feminism, are trying to redefine it to. And I want to kind of take a look at that. So, if you want, you can let me know in the comments if you want to see that video or not. I would be more than happy to make it. Other than that, guys, hope you guys have a great break if you're on break yet. I have an awesome almost 4-week break, which is pretty cool. If you are not Jewish, have a Merry Christmas. If you are Jewish, have Happy Hanukkah. Well, if you're not Jewish and you celebrate Christmas anyway, have a good Christmas, have a good happy Hanukkah, happy whatever else there is. I'm not very knowledgeable in other holidays, or if you don't celebrate anything, have just a happy winter break. Yeah, have a nice day, guys.